Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, testing. All right, well, it's been a bit since I've made an update. Last update that I had, I was just working on finishing off the cage and the rear end. I've done a lot of that and got most of the car mocked up with body panels for the first time. The body panels and such on the front are mostly just mocked up, as well as the interior. I had to get an idea of where to make mounting tabs and brackets and get the front bumper on to make the bumper bar. There you go. So it more or less all lines up. Yeah, it's looking pretty neat, I think. One thing I'm going to have to do, as you'll see here, the passenger side turbo sits a little too far forwards for my quote-unquote radiator support. So I don't know if you can see in here, but you probably can't see, but the driver's side header is actually shorter than the passenger side one. So I'm going to have to take this and move it back just a little bit so they're even, and I can get the charge piping past this bar here. Headlights, I will probably just put little tabs going from the support bar there. The buckets are still on the headlights, but I have no use for those, so those will get taken off. On over to the rear end here. I put some vents in my trunk. I don't really like how this one looks just because I cut too far up to the top, so it kind of looks like some weird buck teeth looking thing. I'll probably put a little bit of metal back in there just to bring the profile of that down a bit. I've got untrimmed AN hoses there in the back. Line routing will have to be done. This is all the stuff that's going to be hanging out in the open, kind of like that. I picked up a Bosch 044 fuel pump that I need to get some fittings and adapters for before I can plumb it in. I moved the Aeromotive A1000 from beside the fuel tank there up here. It's sort of in line with the surge tank, so I shouldn't have any sort of gravity feed issues. When you mount a fuel pump, it has to be mounted either level or below the fuel tank in order to get proper feed. Hence the switch of the Aeromotive and the 044 placement there. Now with the bumper off, it allows to give a little bit better of a view as to what I did down here. So I put a ton of thought into what would make the best bumper structure that would bend where I want it to bend and not transfer shock and impact into the frame. So essentially what I did is I made some, I don't know, for lack of a better term, I'll call them D-rings. They just slide into little tabs of 1/8 inch plate. The side ones go from the frame rail and then end up sort of running parallel along with the fuel cell retainer. Then I added another rear bumper bar in between those two to strengthen them and to prevent it from twisting down like that, the side hoops. So here's the side profile. It all tucks up just under the fenders, so pretty happy with that. But yeah, essentially in any sort of an impact, the way it works out in my head is these outer ends will bend. I'm considering drilling some relief holes in there just to make sure that that's the spot where it really goes. I got my hood pin mounting set. So 4 hood pins to carry the trunk. This gives you a little bit of a look at how I mounted my taillights. I took a small diameter tube and essentially mounted it all on one along with that little valence panel. So it just all unbolts and bolts on in one piece and should allow for some buffer room in case of an impact. And I finished the cage. You can see the anti-intrusion bars in there. I finished up my harness bars. I think it's looking pretty good. Yeah, so there's a little bit of mounting that I need to do left for the steering column there, and maybe a couple dash supports. I'm gonna finish that off before I paint it, just so that I don't have to be grinding off fresh paint to do any welding or anything like that. So you got the little drift handle there for the passengers. I've got my gauges, switch panel, kill switch. The switch panel might be swapped out, I'm not quite sure yet. But yeah, so here's kind of an overview of what's going on.